Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 2 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the actual life of a Muslim family in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 6. The underage victim meets again the notorious womanizer. By transferring their daughter to that private school, the Shams al-Din family does not know that they have handed over their beloved daughter to her former abuser and rapist. It has not taken a long time before the sex predator spotted his former prey among the female students at that private school. When Natasha Shams al-Din comes to the school, Yasser Saif al-Dawla has already married the 2 girlfriends Daria and Maria. His second Muslim wife is still serving her sentence in prison. The Christian wife refused to share the same house with her husband's first Muslim wife. Maria preferred to rent an apartment and stay by herself with her Muslim husband. Yasser has divided his time between his first wife and third wife. He spends 4 days with Maria and 3 days with Badria. Due to her age, the Christian wife Maria convinced her Muslim husband to have a child before it will be too late. She is 36 years old while her husband is 26. Like her friend Daria, Maria became pregnant in the first week she married Yasser. As a matter of fact, a man of Yasser's tribe of Jaila will rarely agree to marry an African Sudanese woman like Maria, who is to him an infidel Christian woman from the tribe of Denka. Natasha's presence in that school revived that selfish love and made Yasser desire her more than before. She is 100 times more beautiful than his 3 wives. She was 16 years old by then, and Yasser is close to double her age. Natasha has grown up into a lovely teenage girl. The sex predator has been able to contact her and assured her that he is still in love with her. The innocent underage girl once again fell into his snare and yielded to him. As a matter of fact, Yasser is an exceptionally handsome young man. He has a charming personality that forces women to fall in love with him at first glance. He is a sweet talker and knows how to use his masculine talent in trapping unmarried women in his snare of false love. He is like Giacomo Casanova, the epitome of the woman hero. Yasser has not revealed to Natasha his new 2 wives and selfish marriages. He told her that he was still ready to marry her even against the wishes of her parents. He knows that the Sharia does not allow a Muslim girl to marry a Muslim man without the consent of her father as her wali. The evil man Yasser took advantage of Natasha's ignorance of Islamic law and put that false hope in her heart. He convinced her to escape her classes and lie to her school and parents about it. Whenever Natasha escaped her classes, Yasser took her to his second wife's house and slept with her. Though she is in jail, the second Muslim wife Daria left her own house to her husband. She has no knowledge that in her absence her husband married her best friend Maria and brought back his first wife Badria. Furthermore, she does not know her unfaithful husband is fornicating in her bed with a girl who is 22 years younger than her. Neither Maria nor Badria is aware of that secret love affair. In a Muslim country, there is no store or pharmacy that is allowed to sell condoms or any other kinds of pregnancy preventives. If a person is caught with a condom, he or she will land in jail and get scourged. Therefore, in Muslim countries, it is more tolerable to be caught with drugs or alcohol in your possession than with a condom in your pocket. It did not take long before Yasser Saif al-Dawla once again made Natasha Shams al-Din pregnant with his second illegitimate baby. He once again jeopardized her life and turned the days of her parents into a living hell. For over a year and a half, Yasser lived in the capital city and almost forgot about his sex victim Natasha and her angry cousins who vowed to kill him. During that period, he did not mend his bad habits or learned from his first mistake. In a short time, he made some selfish love affairs with 3 women and made all of them pregnant. It is just a coincidence that one of those who knew him in the past and knew about the shameful act he did in his former city with Natasha saw him one day while he was returning from his work. The person recognized Yasser Sef al-Dawla, and that old blood feud has been resurrected all over again. The person happened to be none other than one of those vengeful cousins of Sami Shams al-Din who vowed to kill Yasser for bringing disgrace to one of their unmarried female relatives. He followed Yasser until he took him to one of his 2 houses. Then the spy jotted down in his notebook the address of his bitter enemy and left. At midnight, the handsome Sudanese Giacomo Casanova has been visited by an unwanted visitor. While he is sleeping in his house compound surrounded by his first wife Badria and their 2 small daughters, Shadia and Sasan, Yasser Sef al-Dawla has been stabbed twice in his chest. Badria is the first one to scream for help after she saw a stranger who had broken into their house and attacked her husband and stabbed him in his chest with a big knife. Her daughters woke up from sleep and began to shout too. Some of the neighbors responded to the screaming of Badria and her daughters and rushed to their house. They knocked the gate down and entered the compound. When they saw the attacker with a long knife in his hand, they were scared to approach him. The assailant managed to escape while everyone was looking at him and none was able to catch him. As soon as the attacker vacated the crime scene, the neighbors rushed inside the house. They concluded that Yasser has been stabbed to death by a burglar or a foe. One of them dialed the police number and reported the murder crime. Chapter 7. The police investigations on the rape case. Natasha hid her second illegal pregnancy from her parents until the school authority found out that she was pregnant out of the marriage bond. When the school authority interrogated her, she refused to reveal who impregnated her. Immediately, her parents were called in and informed about what had happened to their daughter. This time, her father and mother have become extremely outraged and held the school responsible for what has happened to their underage daughter. They threaten the school authority that if they cannot find out who has deceived their young daughter, they will take the matter to the police. On her second illegal pregnancy, the irreligious parents looked at the case of their daughter as kidnap and rape due to her young age. The school authority is worried that if the parents of the victim complain to the police, then the private school will be shut down. It is the only school in the capital city of Sudan which allowed coeducation, where girls and boys are permitted to sit side by side in the same classrooms and study together, and the teachers are of both sexes. The school has already had 2 cases of illegal pregnancies in the past 3 years, and the Ministry of Education is trying hard to close it. Accordingly, if Natasha's parents take the case to the police, then the Ministry of Education can find a good excuse to shut down the private school. For that reason, the school authority understood that the case of Natasha is more serious than the previous cases because she is a Muslim girl while the other 2 girls were Christians, and both did it willingly. None of those Christian girls had claimed to have been raped or deceived by her boyfriend. To avoid closure, the school authority begged the Shams al-Din's family to give them time until they could find out who deceived and impregnated their daughter. At first, Natasha refused to tell her parents about her former lover and abuser Yasser. Despite that, when the school authority and her parents pressurized her, she falsely claimed that she had been raped by 3 boys inside the school. She said the 3 boys broke into the girls' washroom and raped her while she was all alone. She then said she could not be able to identify the boys because they wore masks when they assaulted her and gang-raped her. No one believed such a story. Even her own parents doubted it. The investigation continued, and many girls and boys have been questioned with the hope that someone may reveal some clue to lead to the real culprit. After all police efforts failed, the parents believed the claim of their daughter that she had been raped by 3 of her classmates. Then the outraged parents took the case to the police authority. In the meantime, the real culprit is fighting with death in the hospital. No one ever thought a young girl of Natasha's age would have a love affair with a maintenance worker in the school. Everyone expected that one of her classmates or male teachers had impregnated her. The police authority of Khartoum took seriously the case of Natasha and thoroughly investigated it. The cops did not leave any stone unturned in their efforts to find out who raped the 16-year-old Muslim girl. The case leaked to the media and became a matter of high interest in the entire capital city. Every teacher and student in the private school has been harshly interrogated by the police. Some teachers have been interviewed by the media. No matter how hard the Sudanese police tried to find out who raped and impregnated the innocent Muslim girl, they could not solve that riddle. Natasha stood by her former story of rape inside the girl's washroom. She did not change her initial statement. When neither the school nor the police authority could find out who raped the Muslim girl, the Minister of Religious Affairs exercised great pressure on the Ministry of Education and led them to shut down the private school. Natasha's parents discovered too late that they committed a big blunder by taking the case of their illegally pregnant daughter to the police authority. When the police took the case, the issue of their daughter's first adulterous pregnancy leaked to the media and became known all over the country. One of their former female neighbors, when they were living in the city of Wadi Madani, wrote an anonymous letter and mailed it to the police of Khartoum. In her letter, she disclosed the first illegal pregnancy of the unmarried daughter of the Shams al-Din family when she was a 14-year-old girl. In accordance with that anonymous letter, the police authority of Khartoum found their first clue in solving the mysterious pregnancy case. They learned that Natasha Shams al-Din had a previous illegal pregnancy when she was in her former city. The wicked woman who wrote the anonymous letter mentioned that Natasha had been impregnated by someone when she was 14 years old in the city of Wadi Madani. Therefore, she delivered an illegitimate baby out of the marriage bond. Then her parents murdered the infant and buried its remains in their house compound. Based on such new pieces of evidence, the police interrogated the parents and their daughter about that allegation, but none of them admitted it. Since there are no witnesses or pieces of evidence, the matter of the first illegal pregnancy and delivery of an illegitimate baby ended there. Despite that, the issue of a second illegal pregnancy of Natasha became a big story in Wadi Madani city. The elders of Shams al-Din's family met again and decided to send someone to rid them of the never-ending scandalous adultery of the fallen daughter Natasha. This time, the father of Sami Shams al-Din and his uncles are determined not only to deal with the fallen daughter, but to punish her parents who are standing by her side and not preventing her from time and again bringing shame to the name of the family. When the elders collectively agreed that honor killing is the only solution to that scandal, 4 of Sami's cousins have been selected and sent with the blessings of the elders. They have been given full authority to perform honor killing on the shameless and useless fallen daughter of Sami and punish her parents in whatever way that seems appropriate. Chapter 8. The second escape of the sex predator. While the rape case of his second crime against the innocent girl Natasha is hotly debated in the media, and the police and school authority are spending sleepless nights trying to find out the real culprit, the sex predator continued to be lying lifeless in the hospital in a critical condition. During this time, his 2 wives, Badria and Maria, attended his treatment and stood with him until he came out of the intensive care unit. His first Muslim wife, Badria, is an illiterate who never went to school. Therefore, she could not read the newspapers and knew nothing about the new sex crime of her husband, which he committed against the same small girl Natasha. Moreover, she has no TV in her house to watch the current news of the sex crime of her bad husband, which turned the city upside down. Although his third Christian wife Maria heard about the sex crime that has been committed against a Muslim female student in her school who got raped and impregnated by someone, still she did not bother to share the matter with her bedridden husband. Her main worry at that time was rescuing his life. She is scared that her handsome husband may die before he can see his child, whom she is carrying in her womb. She loves him so much, and hence his death will be a strong blow to her heart. She doesn't know that her dying husband is the culprit who impregnated her 16-year-old student. Still, his third wife Maria is not believing an Arab handsome young man like Yasser could agree to marry an ugly African woman like her who is so much senior to him in her age. Besides that, she is to a Muslim man like him nothing but an unclean infidel Christian woman. She knows that his Arab family might not accept a black girl like her for being a maidservant to their handsome Muslim son. At any rate, miraculously, the incarnated devil once again survived that honor-killing attack by the angry relative of his former sex victim Natasha. The abuser and rapist remained in the hospital for 1 month before he fully recovered and got discharged. As soon as he came out of the hospital, Yasser Saif al-Dawla became worried about his safety. He knows for sure that the person who broke into his house and stabbed him twice in his chest was none other than one of Natasha's relatives. Since the hands of those outraged male relatives of his little mistress reached him in Khartoum, he understood that his life will be in constant danger if he continued to live in the same place with his first and third wives. Therefore, Yasser sent his wife Badriya back to her parents along with his 2 daughters and moved into his third wife's apartment. Then he disclosed to his Christian wife Maria his past secret affair with that 14-year-old girl, which resulted in her first pregnancy and the problems that followed. He falsely claimed that their love affair was genuine, but her father discriminated against him and therefore refused to give him his daughter in marriage. It was the daughter who came up with the plan for her pregnancy in order to force her father to agree to their marriage. But then things didn't work as she expected. After that, the liar Yasser told his third wife Maria that his girlfriend's relatives vowed to kill him for bringing disgrace to their families. To carry out their vow, her father's cousins made 2 attempts to murder him. For that reason, the notorious womanizer convinced his Christian wife his life will be in danger if he continues to live in Sudan. The only escape from his looming death is to move as quickly as possible to another country and hide from those vengeful relatives of his former girlfriend. But the rapist of Natasha did not tell his wife Maria that he recently met the same girl in the school where she is teaching and slept with her again. So, the teacher Maria has no clue that her impregnated 16-year-old student is the same victim who was impregnated 2 years ago by her husband. After hearing his love story and learning why her husband was viciously attacked and almost killed, Maria understood that his life is not safe in Sudan. And since the school is shut down and she and her husband became jobless, she suggested that they must flee to Egypt. She knows that in Egypt the southern Sudanese are accepted as refugees by the United Nations office in Cairo. Anyone accepted as a refugee in Egypt would be eventually sent for resettlement in America, Australia, or Canada. Maria knows many of her cousins and relatives ended up as refugees in those countries. Her 2 sisters, 3 brothers, and their families are living a wonderful life in those advanced countries. Besides that, Maria is anxious to flee from Khartoum because she is scared to face her friend Daria when the latter comes out of jail. She also knew and understood that her friend Daria would turn her life into a living hell when she came to know that she fell in love with her husband during her incarceration. In addition, the selfish Christian wife Maria wants to have Yasser alone. Because of that, she convinced him to send his first wife Badriya back to her family in the city of Wadi Madani. Since the Ministry of Education officially shut down the private school while he was in the hospital, Yasser has no means of locating his victim, Natasha. Although he knew that he impregnated her for the second time, he did not bother to find out what had happened to her. At that time, his main concern is to flee Sudan with his Christian wife Maria. Yasser came to know that his second Muslim wife delivered a baby girl in prison. Even so, the coward womanizer does not care to wait for her to come out of jail and see his third daughter. He also abandoned his first wife and his 2 daughters and left Sudan forever. Chapter 9. Slaying for Honor. The Shams al-Din's family understood that by going to the police they created more problems for their daughter and themselves. Instead of helping them to find out who raped their daughter, the police betrayed them and exposed the first and second pregnancy cases to the public. Sammy understood that his father, uncles, and cousins are not going to believe that his daughter has been impregnated through rape. They will think that Natasha once again played with the honor of her father and brought a second sex scandal to the family. He also anticipated that his father, uncles, and cousins would not rest until they cleansed the honor of the family by shedding the blood of his daughter. In order to avoid such a tragedy, the Sudanese husband shared his worries with his Russian wife and convinced her that the only escape for their daughter is to take her to another country and close that unpleasant chapter of the family honor forever. This time, Sammy Shams al-Din and Nadia Alexandrov have been fully convinced that their daughter is innocent and a victim of a rape crime. They are now standing by the story of their only daughter who claimed to have been gang raped by 3 masked students who are among her classmates. In accordance, this time, the loving parents have decided not to throw her baby in an orphanage as they did before with her firstborn. They are determined to keep him or her and raised up as their grandson or their granddaughter. When the family reached such a conclusion, they booked their flight from Khartoum to Moscow via London. They want to leave Sudan as soon as possible and return to Russia. Their trip is delayed because Sammy Shams Aldin is carrying a Sudanese passport and needs to get a visa to Russia. Nadia Alexandrov and her daughter Natasha are having Russian passports, and hence they do not need visas to return to their country. Sammy approached the Russian embassy in Khartoum and applied for a visa. He has been told by the embassy to wait for a couple of weeks before he can get it. Meanwhile, Sammy knew that he is leaving Sudan forever, and hence he decided to phone his father and mother, bid them goodbye, and tell them that their daughter was a victim of sexual abuse in her first pregnancy, and she got raped by 3 evil students, and through that criminal act she became pregnant again. Without informing his wife and daughter, Sammy went to a public phone and dialed the phone number of his parents. He doesn't want to use his own cell phone or house phone because he is scared his family may discover his address through those numbers. When he called his parents, his father happened to be out of the house. His mother is the one who picked up the phone. "Yes," said the mother. "Hello, mother. This is me, your son Sammy. My son, it is good you called me. Your father and uncles have sent 4 of your cousins to Khartoum. They decided to murder you, your wife, and your daughter. They came to know your daughter once again played the whoredom and became pregnant with Wad Haram. If you are still in Sudan, please take your wife and daughter and flee to any other country. Mother, thank you so much for revealing to me such an evil plot, but don't worry about our safety. We have already booked our flight. We are leaving after 2 days for Russia. We decided to settle in Moscow. Anyway, don't worry, Mother, they won't know where we are staying in Khartoum. They got your address through the media." "Oh no," shouted Sammy. "When did they leave Wad Madani City?" "They had left early this morning around 6 o'clock. Sammy Shams Aldin knew that the distance between Wad Madani City and Khartoum City can be covered by car in 2 hours and a half. When he looked at his watch, he understood that there was less than an hour left for those vengeful cousins to reach his door. He thanked his mother, said goodbye to her, and rushed back to his residence. Unfortunately, when he reached his house, he saw a big crowd of people gathered in front of his outside door. Also, he has seen many police cars, 1 fire truck, and a couple of ambulances. Therefore, the Sudanese father has understood that he arrived too late. Sammy Shams Aldin began to sweat from head to feet when he saw the huge crowd of people and many police officers in front of his house. He forced his way across the multitude of people until he reached his house compound. At that time, his eyes saw the 2 bodies of his Russian wife and beloved daughter lying on stretchers. Although the bodies are fully covered with white sheets, still the color of the blood could be seen everywhere. Sammy's strength failed him, and his body became paralyzed. Therefore, he could not be able to remain standing on his feet. He saw everything around him was moving fast. At that critical moment, he lost consciousness, and his lifeless body dropped down to the ground. When his unconscious body had been revived, he found himself in a hospital. As soon as he opened his eyes, his memory replayed to him that horrifying sight. He jumped out of the bed, began to shout, and asked about his wife and daughter. With much difficulty, the hospital staff controlled him. A nurse called in a couple of police officers who were waiting for him to regain his consciousness. One of the police officers who looked a bit worried came and sat near him. Sammy Shams Aldin looked at him as if he is the angel of death that came to take away the lives of his beloved wife and dear daughter. Once again, he began to sweat and shake from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. He could not be able to utter a word to the police officer. "Sir," said the police officer, "I am sorry to inform you that your wife Nadia was murdered by some people who broke into your house today morning." "No, it is not true," screamed Sammy in the face of the police officer. "My wife Nadia and my daughter Natasha are still alive. I just left them for a few minutes and went out to make a phone call to my mother. Your Sudanese daughter Natasha Shams Aldin is still alive, but your Russian wife Nadia Alexandrov had passed away." The Sudanese husband of the late Russian wife has not been able to argue with the police officer after hearing the sad news. He just covered his face with both hands and began to weep for the loss of his beloved Russian wife Nadia Alexandrov. Chapter 10. The rape victim shot herself in the foot. According to the medical report, the Russian mother Nadia Alexandrov died on her way to the hospital. She was stabbed several times in her neck, shoulders, and back. She was also hit by an axe to her head. It appeared that the mother covered her daughter Natasha with her body and allowed those ruthless murderers to spew their anger, bitterness, and venom on her rather than on her beloved daughter. Based on some neighbors' statements, the Russian woman Nadia Alexandrov and her Sudanese daughter Natasha Shams Aldin screamed for help at the time those people broke into their house and began to assault them. When the first witnesses arrived at the scene of the crime, they found the mother's body lying unconscious on the top of her daughter's body while it was fully covered with blood. The medical report revealed that the daughter Natasha was also stabbed with knives in her hands, legs, and buttocks. She was still conscious and shouting for help when the neighbors came into her house. None of her wounds are serious or life-threatening. After the doctors examined her body, they found that the baby in her womb was unharmed too. It was her mother who took all the deadly stabs in her body and became a human shield to her beloved daughter. In other words, the brave Russian woman sacrificed her life for the sake of saving the precious life of her treasured daughter Natasha. Shortly after the Sudanese husband Sami Shams Aldin received the heartbreaking news of the sacrificial death of his brave Russian wife, Nadia Alexandrov, the hospital authority declared his daughter Natasha fit to give her statement to the police. She has given her confessions while she is crying bitterly about the loss of her dear mother. According to her statement, shortly after her father went out of their house, some people jumped inside their residence and began to attack her and beat her mother. Her mother tried to fight against those evil people, but they knocked her down. Then two of them assaulted her until she fell to the ground too. Her mother was able to stand on her feet, threw herself on her daughter's back, and covered her. Meanwhile, the daughter and her mother were shouting at the top of their voices and calling for help. Then Natasha said she began to hear the voice of her mother dying away while the attackers were unceasingly stabbing her body with dozens of stabs. One of them used an axe and hit the brave mother on her head. When the groaning of her mother's voice died off, she felt the sharp knives of the attackers begin to cut deep into her hands, legs, and buttocks. She felt terrible pain as those sharp knives were inserted forcibly inside her skin. She thought that she and her mother would die at any moment. After that, Natasha informed the police while the knives were piercing her body. She heard some shouting from other people in their house. She was not able to see any one of those people because her face was downward, and her body was covered by the body of her mother who was covering her back. Then she began to hear those people fighting and beating their attackers. After some struggle and fierce fighting, the people were able to defeat their attackers. When some people lifted her body from her mother's body, she was able to see many people inside her house. She also saw her mother's body was covered with blood from head to foot. She fell on the body of her mother and began to cry loudly. Some people took her by force from her mother's body and asked her to sit down until the police cars and ambulance arrived. Natasha narrated the horrifying honor-killing attack with many tears while her voice was choking with grief. After giving her statement, she inquired about the safety of her mother. When she has been told by the police that her mother was killed by those attackers, she began to cry and blame herself for causing the death of her beloved mom. After that, she has been informed by her father about who are those evil slayers and why they attacked them and slaughtered her mother in such a cold-blooded murder. For the first time, Natasha understood that she is a victim of deception and rape. She concluded that her married boyfriend Yasser deceived her under the pretense of love and made her pregnant twice, and then disappeared from her life. If he truly loved her, he shouldn't have impregnated her in a strict Muslim society like Sudan, where such a deed is considered a big shame and disaster to the girl's family. Any Muslim girl who becomes pregnant before marriage will be slain in honor killing. Therefore, Natasha decided to punish her rapist who deceived her twice under the pretense of pseudo-love. For that reason, she opened her mouth and informed the police authority about the man who impregnated her while she was studying at that private school. She admitted that the same man who impregnated her for the first time when she was in the city of Wadi Madani is the same man who impregnated her for the second time in Khartoum City. Moreover, she confessed that she lied to the school, the police authority, and her parents about the real culprit who raped and impregnated her. She also admitted that she wasn't raped by masked 3 students while she was in the girls' washroom. She said she had created that lie because she wanted to protect her boyfriend Yasser Sef Aldallah, who made her pregnant twice. After the cruel murder of her mother, who sacrificed her life for her and bore the punishment of her honor killing, she is determined to expose the real culprit. The half-caste girl, who is a half-Russian and half-Sudanese girl, Natasha, thought that through her truthful confessions she has helped the police authority to identify the real culprit who deceived and raped twice a minor girl like her. She also expected that by telling the truth, the police of Khartoum would apprehend her rapist and bring him to justice. Being born and brought up in a Western country, the Russian girl thought she is a victim of deception and rape. Sadly, the underage girl didn't know that she has shot herself in the foot by admitting that she willingly committed adultery and got impregnated twice by a grown-up man who isn't her husband. Natasha's case occupied the Sudanese media for several weeks. The murder of her mother and her twice illegal pregnancies became a hot topic for the media. According to Islamic Sharia law, any man or woman who has been caught committing adultery must be given 100 lashes. If he or she is married and committed adultery with another person, then he or she must be stoned to death. There are 3 ways to prove adultery in Islam. 1. For witnesses. 2. Confession. And 3. Pregnancy. Natasha is guilty of adultery on the grounds that she confessed it and she is pregnant. Therefore, her illegitimate conception has been confirmed through her confession and pregnancy without marriage. And since she has admitted that she became illegally impregnated twice, that makes her liable to receive double punishment of 200 lashes. As regards the man who unlawfully impregnated Natasha, he is supposed to be stoned to death because he committed adultery with her while he is married to another woman. He committed his first fornication when he was having 1 wife and 3 wives when he was involved in the second adultery. Therefore, the police of Khartoum issued an arrest warrant against the adulterous married man Yasser Sef Aldallah. They searched for him everywhere, but they could not find him. No one knows where he has gone. Even his first wife Badria said to the police that she had no knowledge of where her husband had gone. Even though, through her, the police of Khartoum came to know that her husband has other 2 wives besides her and impregnated both women. One of the wives is an Arab Muslim woman by the name of Daria Noor al-Huda, who is serving an imprisonment sentence in the Khartoum women's prison. The third wife is an African Christian woman who is originally from the south of Sudan and is known as Maria Malal. The second and third wives are female teachers in the same school. Yasser is employed as a maintenance worker. The police tried to find him through his third wife Maria, but they discovered she had disappeared too. Out of the 4 honor-killing murderers, 2 managed to escape and 2 were apprehended by the neighbors. Those subdued 2 were badly battered by the neighbors, and when the police arrived, they were half dead. The angry neighbors used big rods and hammered the murderers to death. Sami Shams al-Din identified one of the murderers as the son of one of his uncles and the second as the son of one of his aunties. Shortly after their discharge from the hospital, the police tortured them and extracted from them the names of the other 2 suspects. Those 2 suspects got arrested by the Wadi Madani police and transferred to the Khartoum men's jail. Through the statement of Sami Shams al-Din, which he based on the information he obtained from his mother, the police have been able to uncover the entire honor-killing plot. Consequently, his father and some of his uncles have been arrested on charges of conspiring to commit 3 honor killings, and likewise, they have been transferred to Khartoum to stand trial.